school throughout my whole entire life. Even throughout high school, I think it has cooled down, but I have heard situations from other classmates that get bullied constantly. It was just like, it really hurts in a way, because we're just like, what do our teachers do? Like, in certain situations, I have classroom filled with just like white people, and I'm the only Hispanic person in there. So it's like, it's kind of intimidating, because all of those people think they're quote unquote entitled to who you are just because you're different. Yeah. Like, I know I've heard remarks being made about me saying, oh, she's not going to do anything because she's Hispanic. She must be a bad kid because she doesn't talk to anyone. Or just because I look different from everyone else, I get called out on it. And it's just like, we're supposed to be a united force, especially us as youth, as we're all going through the same struggles. And I feel like we were being pulled away so far apart oftenly. And even with like a toll of mental health, I know when I went through a stage of depression, like when I went back to school, now it's like being talked about constantly. But even before that, I feel like you would get made fun of if someone knew that you were depressive, or if you were suicidal, or if you had anxiety. I myself do have PTSD due to certain car accidents that we had, and it's just horrible. But at the same time, like, you would get made fun of for, being anxious or being nervous of something, or if you were depressed. And again, along the spectrum of, oh, you look like this, okay, you can't be with us. Like, fitting in has been so tough coming back from COVID. Yeah. And it's just like, sometimes we don't know what to do, and we want to talk. Like, I know I personally, sometimes I felt so restricted because I felt like we were being silent constantly. Like, someone would always silence us, like, oh, you can't do that. Or no one's going to listen to you, or just because you would feel a certain way and everyone would make fun of you, you didn't want to be perceived in that light like everyone else said you would.
Yeah. You mentioned some serious issues that are going on. And, when you look at our kids, yourself, and everyone's separated, and obviously, getting all their knowledge and getting everything from YouTube and or various social media, and that's still pushing down, and seeing the different things that are happening as far as the 15-second fame, and that's what you're being influenced by. And now coming together, I mean, it has to be hard. I mean, I can't imagine what people are going through. And looking at the different people, and now you're looking at integrating where kids were separated within themselves and their own family, not exposed to other races, and now thrown together. I can't imagine, the thoughts are going through your head, or the lack of exposure. And I always say that a lot of this comes from the lack of exposure and having empathy and understanding other cultures. And that myself, I've ran into many of those things growing up, where it was completely, stereotype upon myself. Yeah. So I can't imagine, I went through that. I can't imagine coming out of COVID now going and out to high school. But you mentioned some couple of things that are very interesting. And part of it goes into depression and what you said about, people overdosing in classrooms, in bathrooms. And, your take on that, on the depression over there, because, depression comes in many forms, what I believe, and the way that people deal with it, especially kids, and you mentioned how it was shone upon if you actually said something. Coming from the military, I know there's a lot of service members that die every month. That's why they have the Mission 22, because 22 service members die a month of suicide, and it's huge to understand that. To live in through depression with myself, even battling PTSD myself, I understand that it's hard, and you have to learn how to. But now you're trying to do that in a high school society where there's no sensitivity to anyone else, especially coming from out of COVID. And now you're in a situation where there's no culture sensitivity. Yep. And now you're being thrown in there. And when I hear that, people are shunned away or made fun of at the high school, middle school areas because they're suffering from depression. It breaks my heart. I know some statistics out there, 17% increase in female suicides alone. Uh, what do you think, or why do you think the suicide rate just for females with that stat, 17% has increased? And I know a lot of people don't want to hear these numbers. They want to turn a blind eye, but these are actual facts that suicide rate, especially again for young teens, young female teens, has increased. Where do you think that's coming from?
I feel like it has a lot to do with, again, like social media influence does play a lot in what you think of yourself and what others may think of you. I feel like social media is like a very big platform where it's like so powerful, where anything anyone says, like you will take it to heart, especially if that person has a sort of higher power,
Yeah.
or more popular than anyone else. I personally, when I went through my whole stage of depression, thankfully I never really considered killing myself. I did attempt to cut just because I felt, in a sense, worthless.
Yeah.
I felt like I deserved that pain that I was going through during that time. But I feel like all of this, like the suicide rates, again, it has to do with social media influence or the people we even surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
As I mentioned to you earlier, it was shown upon a lot if you mentioned that you were depressed. I know this year recently we did, for juniors specifically, there was an evaluation, an SOS evaluation. They did a whole presentation about suicide, and at the very end, they made us fill a questionnaire. It was about 5 questions or so. And every question was like, oh, did you ever attempt to take away your life? And when that was happening, you could hear the comments or like, oh, you better not answer the truth. You can't say the truth because then they're going to call you to the counselor's office and then you're deemed to be seen crazy, quote unquote, because if you tell the truth, if you try to seek help, if you try in any way, shape, or form to speak up of how you feel, you're just like, no, you don't feel that way. It's all in your head. Like, it's not true. Like, your feelings are invalidated.
So you're saying that they're saying, who's saying that invalidating
A lot
feelings? Is it the
has to do
students?
with
Is it
students.
the students are telling you that?
Mainly students, classmates, peers, whatever. Like, mainly it's people in the school, not necessarily the teachers.
Mhm.
It's mainly us as teenagers, as youth, that will be shunning upon one another when we shouldn't be doing that.
No, you shouldn't. And that's this whole subject and is hard. And I can see the passion that you're having, and it reminds me a lot of what I've been struggling with and going through, and I still struggle every day. Um, when we talk about the youths and your peers, I mean, it means a lot. I mean, I can't imagine going through school where everyone's telling you, your social network or your inner circles telling you not to say anything, not to seek help. I just can't imagine that that's even possible in today's society, but it's actually a huge reality of what we're dealing with. Now, what are you seeing as outlets? What are kids doing to try to get through this? Obviously, they don't want to go to the counselors. They don't want to do anything like that. What are they doing to try to seek some sort of remedy towards this? I know drugs has increased. And fentanyl across the nation has increased substantially. Now, kids aren't taking fentanyl directly, but fentanyl is being laced in a lot of other things. Obviously, we're having overdose. We're having multiple things. Where's this coming from? Why? How is this even possible that they're having such easy access to these things? And I'm not trying to tell you, like, give me the secret code to try to stop all this. Obviously, I don't want one death at all, but we got to look at, what's happening. How are these outlets happening that kids are being able to get these things, get these drugs that, are laced with the worst things ever. And it's causing them to overdose and having death. And this is not just happening in Virginia, it's happening across the nation. We're losing so many kids to this. So kind of describe what you're seeing in the schools that, are allowing kids this access. Where are they getting this from? Where are they getting these leads from? It's just beyond me. Are there people on the side of the street, selling? I grew up in the ghetto of San Diego.
Right.
So the area that I'm used to, drugs are prevalent. We know where the drug dealers were. They were driving along Highland Avenue, National City. and we had shootouts over there. I grew up in a bad area. And so I understand where they were. Living in Fairfax County, more of the suburbs, you're not seeing it, when you compare it to where I grew up, you're not seeing it. It's uncomparable, but it's out there.
It is.
Is it coming through social media? Is it coming through, TikTok? Is it coming through Snapchat? How is this being distributed?
Okay, it's like a line. So it's a friend of a friend of a friend knows a friend of a friend. It's like that's how it gets distributed into the schools. I have seen on one occasion where they were transposing, I don't know what type of drug it was. I just know that someone slipped something in someone's hand, swiped it out, put it in their bag, and ran away, hood up, and just ran away. So it's just, again, it has to do with who you surround yourself with, because you will not see it out and about.
Yeah.
Like, the drug will not be out and about up in your face, or someone will be like, hey, you want this? Like, you got to go searching yourself.
Okay.
You got to ask around, be like, hey, do you know where I can get this, where I can get that? I know a big issue at my school, and I know from a lot of other schools, because I have peers from other schools as well, a big issue is vaping in the bathrooms, specifically in the bathrooms. I'm just like, why the bathrooms? Sometimes the bathrooms get like filled up with like people in it. You can't even use it because people are vaping in one specific stall or using up the whole bathroom. And obviously us as people that don't want to get involved, like we try to stray away from it, and we're like, okay, we gotta go use another bathroom. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, it has a lot to do with who you surround yourself with. I know there's certain neighborhoods, at least the neighborhood that I live in, that is something that you will see on occasion, where people are dealing drugs to one another at certain hours of the day. I know my mom actually has told me that on occasions in front of our house, there's a stop sign, and that's like a main post for drugs dealing. So yeah, it's just, again, it has to do with who you surround yourself with, where you are at in your certain environments. Honestly, drugs will not pop up unless you yourself go searching for it.
Oh, wow. And so, kids get savvy and they start searching, asking around, and people look at, okay, we need to stop the drug problem. Mm-hmm. That's a major thing. And working in the Secret Service, working with law enforcement, working in agency, working overseas, trying to do operations where we're shutting those things down. I always looked at, there's a heart of the matter. And there's something I always say, that we could put a Band-Aid over things and we try to stop it on a superficial level. But if we need to get to the heart of the matter, where the true pain's coming from, why are kids going in that direction? It comes to the mental health. You start solving the mental health aspect of things, kids aren't going to go out and seek those things. And that's something that is very important to me. And I kind of want to speak more on the mental health and what you're seeing as far as, kids dealing with this stuff. And resources. Right now we're dealing with, as a parent and seeing what's happening, having a small business and hiring a lot of people. I have people that are working, parents working 2 jobs. The economy is not the best. Inflation is very high, over 8%. We're dealing with, gas prices at a high. We're dealing with food that's at a high. When we start looking at a lot of these things, parents, obviously they have a duty. They want to take care of their kids and they have to work. And so it takes a lot of, time away from the kids. And now the kids are fending for themselves. And I know, you growing up and everything, you're seeing a lot of this. Are you seeing enough, from the community, enough mentors, enough everything to be able to get to the kids, to talk with the kids, to work with them outside of just the parents? Is that something that you, as a youth, is that something that you need to have more, mentors that are coming out to the schools and kind of just being there, not necessarily as a parent, but as just a role model and a friend, to be there for the kids, so someone gets to lean on? Do you see enough of that? Is that something that, as a teen, is it something that you think that needs to happen?
I feel like definitely it's something that we need to see more of, or need to speak out more on. I feel like the best resource that our counselors or our teachers will tell us is go talk to your parents or go talk to a trusted adult. But most of the time, I know that when I went through my whole stage of depression, which I still battle a lot with today, I know during that time, I did not want to speak to my mom due to the fact that I felt like I needed an outside perspective. Like knowing her, I know she would have supported me 100%, but at the same time, us as teens, at least some percentage of us, believe that if we tell our parents I feel depressive, I feel a certain way, like in a sense, we're disappointing them.
Yeah.
And that's not exactly what we want to do. Like we want to ease that pain for them and be like, okay, let me not put this upon my parent. Let me take it for myself and let me deal with it myself. I know growing up a lot on my own for about 13 years, it was just me and my mom, single mom. She worked late nights. I would spend time at a person's place to, sleep and all that. But in sense, again, I feel like it does need to be talked about or more pushed into, okay, we need more mentors at our schools.
Mm-hmm.
We need more counselors, more advisors. I have a fantastic counselor at my school who I believe does a magnificent job. Even other peers who don't have her think, oh, wow, you should recommend me to your counselor. I'd be like, okay, here, this is her name, blah, blah, blah. But many of the times as well, those same counselors that are appointed to our school aren't always doing their job. They're supposed to be there advising us, helping us even throughout our college. Like there are advisors for college. And I have heard certain situations where certain peers have tried to reach out or email to their counselor saying, hey, I need this help with college or whatever, but they never receive a response back, or they're on their sense, they're not doing a great of a job as they expected they would.
Yeah, no, hearing that, more mentors, more everything coming out. And I've talked so many times about, adults stepping up and doing their part. Parents can't do it alone, and it's hard. And I understand that. Growing up myself, you don't want to make your parents feel a certain way, like disappointed or worry about you. Because parents will. They love you so much. It's going to be overly abundant worry.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just need that person just to talk to you, just to say, hey, I'm going through some issues. I'm going through some problems. And we definitely do need to do more, a better job at that. And one of the initiatives that I want to do is there's a fantastic program within Fairfax County that teaches foster parents how to deal with at-risk kids' mental health issues like that. I myself went through that, and being a foster parent, an adopted parent, I went through that course, and it was the most amazing thing to understand what you need to do. And sometimes it's not the magic word. There's no magic word, no magic phrase. And what it is just to be there in the moment. Mm-hmm. And that's what I started doing myself, is trying just to be in the moment and just have fun with the kids and bring life to the kids. I see so much that's going on in our society, and with all my experience and, through, decades of war and experiencing that, and then experiencing, having a at-risk son, and then, working with him through those issues. I mean, there was a lot of tears that were shedded by me, because there are times where I just I felt I had no control. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I had to, as a parent, had to go seek, advice from other people. And luckily I was part of this fantastic program that I just gave them a call and said, listen, I don't know what to do. I'm having a hard time here. Please help me. So there's, even as adults, we have to look at our resources, and even parents. I mean, it's hard when you know that your kids are struggling, and you want to take all their pain away, but you just don't know how. And you feel, like you said, you don't want to feel for your mom. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm disappointing her. And you, vice versa, the parent doesn't want to feel like I'm disappointing my child I'm failing my child. It's one of the hardest things that a parent could go through. So I think on both ends, there's a lot of that same feelings going back and forth. And, moving into some of the initiatives that I love to see once I get on that school board is to provide a lot of this support towards the parents, not just the teachers and guidance counselors with these, training or these support networks, but push that out to the community. Because like I said, if we want to solve the problems of depression and drugs and why kids, depression is always going to be there. People get depressed. I mean, it happens. But to get to a point where you're trying to relieve yourself from this pain and not seeing what the beauty of this world has to offer is one of the worst things. And when I talk to a lot of people, I say, there's a worldview you have through a prism that you're looking through. Now that prism could be of what you're dealing with, depression, negativity, everything that's happening in society, what kids are exposed to with, the climate change, saying that the world's going to end and making kids feel that, what else is left? Nothing's having a feeling of nothing's good. That's a prism that we tend to put our kids into. And it's expanded because, before when I was going through school and everything with date myself, we didn't even have these things. We had a big old brick. You ever saw Saved by the Bell?
No, I have not.
Oh, that's how old I am. So Zach Morris used to have a cell phone. It was about that big. And it was a brick. And all you old folks like me out there remember Zach Morris. He had that brick and he was calling. That was a cell phone. Okay. It was bigger than that water bottle was the cell phones out there. Okay. So we didn't have the same exposure. We didn't have the same exposure to what's going on. There was no news 24/7 feeds coming in of what's happening across the world. It was very isolated, and it was good because we were able just to be kids. Now you add the fact that we have social media with things getting posted, these movements that are happening, that rallying up the kids, get the kids involved in these things. Is it really good for the kids? And that's where I look at. We are creating this epidemic because we want to give the kids exposure like adults, but they're kids still. And they're going through a whole lot of other things, just trying to fit into school. Now you're going to toss some adult things to try to think about and comprehend. As an adult, I could barely comprehend a lot of this stuff. I can't imagine if I was going through puberty at the same time and trying to figure out myself. And now I'm getting bombarded with all this other stuff. Yeah. And how do you feel about so much exposure? And second to that, I brought up in one of my meetings, how do you feel about all the kids having phones and having the ability just to go on social media during school hours at any moment in time? I don't see anything positive in it, but coming from you, being in the school, how does that affect the social media in school? All the stuff that's coming in on social media that everyone's reading on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Do young kids even use Facebook now?
I don't think so anymore. That's for you.
It is. Like, hey, when I started, it was called MySpace. And all you old folks out there, we all had a MySpace. Do not deny it. I had a MySpace. Actually, I still do. I never deactivated it. It's still out there in space. And so with all that social media, give me your take on that.
I think, as you said, you guys grew up you guys didn't have the access we do now.
Yeah.
And I feel like the newer generation that's coming in, I feel like they have. I know I've seen little kids, probably 2 years old, with an iPad.
Oh my God.
It was I didn't get my first phone until I was in middle school. Yeah. My mom had that rule for us growing up. It's we didn't get to have our first phone until we were 13, 14. But even then, I still feel like that is such a dangerous age to expose us to such technology just because of how much influence that brings us into our lives. I know there's a bunch of beauty standards, or you're supposed to look a certain way in order to fit in. or a bunch of movements that have been going on, or rather crazy challenges that have happened at TikTok. There's a point in time last year at school, it was called Devious Legs, where they would steal like bathroom seats, like full bathroom seats, soap dispenser. They would steal everything from a school, basically, take them with them and be like, oh yeah, I got this, blah, blah, blah. So it's just like social media, phones in general, any sort of platform that reaches anywhere all over the world is such a dangerous thing to have access to at such a young age. The earlier you have access to that, I feel like the more our brains become zombie dead in a way.
Yeah.
We are so glued to our phone. I know I am guilty of that sometimes. We are so glued to our phones that we have to seek validation online. And through that validation comes bullying, cyberbullying. I have never come across that, but I have seen it happen where if you post something, you might think you look cute, fine, okay, I'm feeling myself, let me post this. But someone else will be like, ew, why'd you post that? And they'll just bombard you with disgusting comments, hateful things, just because you might have made a face that someone else didn't like. I know growing up at school, I would get made fun of for the way I dress, the way I act, the way I talk. Clothing, you couldn't buy clothing from certain stores, like Walmart, for example. It is shunned upon if you were seen dressed wearing Walmart clothing. I had to grow up wearing Walmart clothing because my mom worked at Walmart. But thank you, Walmart, for giving me that access.
There's nothing wrong with Walmart. I have some Walmart pants.
I love Walmart, but at the same time, growing up, people would make fun of you for it. Like your value on social media is esteemed for the way you act, the way you dress, even how much money you have. Like if you are not rich enough to the standard of social media, you can't be part of that society, quote unquote, or you're not good enough to be a part of this world, or you're not good enough to sit at the cool kids table with all the popular kids and all the people that want to be popular at school. Like there are certain cliques that are created because of how early access we might have to social media. And it's like, it affects us a lot and it plays a toll in our mental health because we are trying to keep up with the standards of what everyone else says because everyone else thinks it's cool, so I must also play along with that paper, or I must fit into this role that social media tells me to do because social media is telling me to do it. So it's like, again, social media has such a power over our lives. And it's just like we seek so much validation. I know for a long time I wanted validation from everyone else. Like everyone else's opinion mattered. Like I didn't care if I liked it, if someone else didn't like it. That was it for me. That was completely it. As long a while, as well as our parents. Our parents also have a toll on us. Their opinions to us matter a lot. At least I can speak personally for myself. When I have sat down to talk to my mother, we have these really deep conversations, and I tell her, whatever you say to me, I will take it to heart. Like if you tell me something is bad, I will take that on for the rest of my life. And I would beat myself up for it just because you told me something was bad. Or there are certain parents that hold you to a very high standard. And I understand pushing you beyond your capabilities because you guys believe in us. Obviously, you guys want the best for us. But at the same time, I know that there are certain parent standards where you must be A's all the time. Like you can have an A minus. And that your parent will not accept that. You have to maintain that standard of a 4.0 or 100%. Like you cannot get anything lower than that. And if you get anything lower than that, you are a disappointment. You are seen as a disgrace, or you get compared to someone else. I know comparing yourself to someone else, yourself as well as anyone around you, especially those that care about you the most, if you start comparing us, we're like, well, why is what I think is good enough, or what I'm trying is good enough? What I think is good enough for me, but why is it not good enough for you? Like, my best is not your best. You hold me to such a high standard, yet I cannot seem to meet those standards. Like you can be doing perfectly, yet that perfect is not perfect enough.
Now, do you see that happy life? You said some fantastic stuff. I kind of want to unpack a lot of that. You mentioned social media, and I think it's a disservice. Obviously, it's exposing kids at a young age to things they just don't need to be exposed to. And then, it's bringing out, it's what people say, what I like to say, on social media, show me the best, forget the rest. And now you're holding everyone to a certain standard, but it's not real life.
Yeah.
And I've seen it recently in the Twitter world. I just recently opened Twitter only because of the campaign, and try to connect with a lot of people in the community, and even myself, being beaten down with complete lies. And it's terrible. I had one person say on Twitter that because of my security background, that I want to put all Black kids in handcuffs. Another one said that I hated LGBTQ kids. And another one said that, I told I said that kids with disability need to suck it up. And considering that I had two kids with ADHD and one with at-risk mental health issues, depressions, and everything, it really took a toll on me. And I'm an adult, hearing these things, because it kills at the essence of who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And the worst part about when you start, getting into this is when you sit there and you tell them, those are lies. I've never said that. Show me where I said that. And they can't, but they keep saying it because they assume. They just lump you into the stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, being a conservative, well, you're conservative, so you have to be that way. So we're just going to say it. Mm-hmm. And then it's literally cyberbullying. I understand it. And it was a point where I was, I told, my team, I said to them, listen, I need just to be by myself for about a day. I just don't want to talk to anybody, because it really affected me, because it cuts at the essence of who you are. And if you're already struggling, with depression and different things, which, I struggle, and I'm proud of it. I have, PTSD. I'm proud of my scars. My scars are given because of the service I did for the country. And I don't look at it as a handicap at all. I look at it as a proud moment that I gave part of myself. You're not going to go over 10 years back and forth overseas without gaining some scars. But it kills the essence, because everything you did, everything you do is to help others. And then you sit there and cyberbullies are doing that to break you down, because they don't like your agenda, or they like somebody else, the other candidate, over you. That's happening in my space. I can't imagine what's happening in your space. And you talking about that, it just gave me a flashback of what I dealt with just last week doing this. And it's hard, and you also mentioned, that was very interesting, when we're talking about depression, and we're talking about, social media and everything, with social media, what do we need to do as a young teen? I understand that with social media, it's showing the best, hide the rest. There's cyberbullying that's going out there. What do we need to do as a society? What are you guys seeing? Because I truly feel that a lot of the social media is taking advantage of our kids, understanding that we give them an outlet to be able to do this without any constructive control, and we're just unleashing everything out. So as a teen, and I'm sure there's two sides of the coin. You got kids that want all my social media, and then you got kids like yourself that says, hey, listen, there's a bad effect that's happening that's going to carry over. Two things. So what can we do as far as social media? Second to that, was very compelling what you said, was the pressure. So one of the things that I'm running on is academic excellence. And a lot of people look at academic excellence as going to college and getting high SAT scores. And I don't look at that. When I was in the military, I looked at, vision and mission. What's my vision? My vision is for our kids to grow up healthy and to go into a profession that they love, and not put any added pressure on them. That's my vision. My mission, how we're going to get there, is providing more trade schools, more exposure to various things. And I've always said, and I'm not in school right now, so I can't, so I want to hear your take on it. I always said that, you know, we're putting too much pressure on test scores and saying you have to go from high school to college and that's it. And people are weighing out why are SAT scores low? And I told people, well, that's because probably half those kids don't even want to go to college, but we're giving no other option, you know, and we're putting that pressure that you need to go to college. I understand when I'm going to age myself again, graduated in 1992 from high school. It was, got to go to college, got to go to college. But we still had exposure with trade schools, you know, auto mechanic, welding, different things like that. Are we getting enough of that into schools? Are kids sitting there saying, you know, I don't want to go to college. I want to do something else? I don't know. I want to know from you, being in school, is there a segment and what in your mind, how big is that segment?
I feel like that definitely should be something that should be expanded on more. Like trade school, like you had that luxury to be able to have such exposure to that, to be able to have easier access, even though college was very much pressured upon. And that still does happen today now. I feel like from very young age, they tell us, okay, once you graduate high school, you have to know what you're going to do.
Mhm.
You have to know what you're going to go into for college. Like everything is, you have to know, you have to know, you have to know. Yeah, I'm going into my senior year coming up in August, and there's sometimes where I still feel like very unprepared for the world.
Mhm.
Like I feel like I haven't been taught enough in order for me to be exposed to such a big world. They expect us to do so much, and yet I personally feel like we've received so little.
Mhm.
At school, my personally at school, we have certain academy classes where they help you with. You want to be a cosmetologist. I know at other schools they offer things like mechanics or engineering or coding. I'm currently taking criminal justice right now at my academy school, and it's based inside of my school as well. But at the same time, I feel like there should be an expansion to that. There
Mhm.
should be more access to that. There should be more advocacy to it. There should be more advertising to it, saying, okay, what do our students want? What do our students exactly want to pursue? I feel like it is very much limited on what we can do. I feel like everyone else is wanting us to do something certain. Like everyone else is telling us, you have to do this,
Yeah.
without taking into consideration what do we actually want to do.
That's hard because you go into the pressure. You know, now we add in social media, cyberbullying. You know, having dressed a certain way. You know, granted, when I was in school, you know, the only way that you saw that you had to dress a certain way was a magazine. Now it's just constantly coming in, and then you add in the fact that you know cyberbullying going on. You know, not fitting in, or some people, and then coming out of COVID and coming all together. All these things are happening to our kids. Then add in the fact that, you know, as good of parents we are, we're probably one of the worst enemies, that we're putting so much pressure on our kids because we want so much good for them, because that's our idea of what their happiness should be. Vice is sitting with your child and saying, you know, this is going to be your life.
Yep.
And you're going to choose many careers during that time. You know, what is your interest? What do you want to do? What do you like to do? And then go from there. And that's where I'm an advocate for more trade schools, because it just adds a different element. It gives a different exposure for the kids. And it shouldn't be shut upon. It should be equally say, hey, listen, here's a bunch of trade schools out there. And there's a lot of kids. I'm sure there's a lot of kids that you know that love to work with their hands.
Yeah.
You know, and I always tell a lot of people, show me a house that doesn't have electricity or plumbing. Yeah, it's never going to happen. Show me a time where we're not going to have vehicles.
Yeah.
We're going to have those jobs. Is it shunned upon in the school? Is that considered something? And we're talking with the students, not the faculty, not the teachers, because I could really care less. Me personally, I could care less what a faculty member says, what the kid should do, because it's not my life. It's not their life. It's your life. And we should be supporting your endeavors and your life and what you want to do. Is there a segment of the kids that you've experienced that says, hey, listen, school's just not for me. Like, you know, math, Calculus is just, I tell you, calculus is hard. It's just not for me. I want to do something with my hands. I want to build things. I like that. Is there a segment of kids that you know of that are saying, yes, I want this. I'd rather be doing this than studying for a SAT that really I don't even care about because I really don't want to go to college?
There is. I feel like the vast majority of people, it's either they want to go to college or they don't want to. Like, school's not for them. I know I have a lot of classmates, for example, even and other states where they're just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do after high school. Like, we're graduating soon, and they're just like, I don't feel like school is my thing.
Yeah.
Yet we are told constantly, oh, you have to go to college. Like, you have to. It's like, or some people even want to take a gap year, but even that, like, people are like, why are you taking a gap year? Like, you're just gonna get lazy and you're not gonna want to go back to school anymore. So I know there's a lot of people that really want more than just school. Like, they don't want to stick with school their whole lives. They want to do something with their creativity or with their imagination. They want to feel useful. I don't want to sit down in a desk for 7 hours reading textbooks, writing down notes, teacher talking for a good 45 minutes. I'm not very much interested.
Yeah.
I'm a very much engaged learner. Like, let me do something with myself. Like, engage me. Don't just talk to me for 45 minutes. Don't let me sit down and read a textbook for the next 3 hours or the next 7 hours of the school that there is. I want to do something. I want to get up and be interactive. I don't want to always sit down. Like, it hurts sitting down for so long. Like, we barely get a break. At least in high school, our only break is lunch, unless you get like free periods. But then other than that, like, our only break is lunch. And even lunch is like 20 minutes. And I'm just like, we're in the school for 7 hours.
That's worse than the military. We had more time to eat than
that. Oh my goodness. No, I know, at least at my school, I don't know if it's a whole Fairfax County thing, but like, we only have like 20 minutes of lunch break. And that lunch break is divided into 4 different blocks. And every block gets 20 minutes of a break. And I was like, you expect us to be fully engaged for 6 hours of their time, yet you're not giving us like more to work with. Again, I am a very much visual learner. I'm very much interactive. And I feel like the more the teacher engages me as a student to be able to learn, the more I'm going to want to learn. And I feel like that's not what's happening. I feel like that's why a lot of people just stray away from school and they're like, yeah, school's not for me, because we don't feel very much engaged. We don't feel very much involved. Feel like we're just there, sitting there, write notes, we're up, we go home, do homework, fall asleep, do it all over again.
And that's, when you start looking at that, are we preparing our kids, the ones that don't want to go to college is because school's not for them? Are we preparing them to actually have meaningful jobs? I mean, there's a lot of jobs right now that are just not getting filled. Blue collar jobs that aren't getting filled. And I always look at, providing that exposure to different things instead of just sitting, hey, listen, talking with the kids and working with the parents and the teachers, guidance counselors, kind of figure out, okay, what's your interest? What do you want to do? And for me, if the kid says, college isn't for me, doesn't mean you can't go to college after, say, 2 years and you're working as an auto mechanic, and then you say, you know what, I want to go to college now. Now I'm ready. It doesn't say that you can't do that. There's many adults that have went through their whole life, got a career and everything, and then decide to go back to college. So nowadays, I don't think it's that big of a deal. We could talk so much more about this, but there's a question, and do we have any more questions besides that one? So we have a question here. Are there programs that provide services for both parents and children? And I think that's going into the fact of mental health. Is that correct? I don't. So I'll give you my take, and you tell me from your standpoint. I don't think there's enough programs that we should that we're doing simultaneously, working together. I know, a lot of church groups and everything love to bring kids and parents together. Are you seeing that, or is there a need for that? Do you think that that's a benefit, something that kids will want to gravitate towards? Like, hey, listen, I want to work, go with my parents and do some of these activities, do some of these programs, so we can build a stronger bond. Are you seeing that?
I feel like that's not something that you often see out in the community. I feel like it's something that definitely we need. as a community, because yes, us as students are struggling with our own stuff. But I feel like parents as well, like you guys deal with your own things as well, like trying to raise us, trying for a better future for us. Coming from an immigrant family, especially from a single mom, like she had to work very, very hard to grow me and my two older sisters. Like she had to raise us on her own for so long. It's like I feel like programs like that would bring us together definitely would create a special bond. Like I definitely am the type of person that I love to have my parents at any event that I have at school or just in life in general. And I feel like having a present parent that will show up to any event that you invite them to, I feel like that does make you feel special in a certain way.
Yeah. And I think, going back to the question, we have a couple more questions that we're going to talk about, going to understanding the needs of your child, understanding what drives and makes them happy, because as adults, we get so caught up in what we think and we lose track of what our kids' wants are. We lose track of who they are. We remember them as a young, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, and all of a sudden, like you're 17 going to be 18, after a year, you're going into adulthood. You're not the same person back then. You've developed, you've changed through the time, through social influence, outside influence, different things has morphed you. And what I feel is, with parents, we start here in a very young ages because we're nurturing and everything. And as we grow up, you start moving through, school and everything. And then as you get into middle school, that starts breaking away, that bond and spending time together. And all of a sudden now, the parents are on one track. This is what you need to do. You need to go do this. And now you're over here. It's like, no, I want to do this, and nothing brings everyone together. And I think having that time working together, bringing the parents together, brings that bond to really understand who's my kid right now and what drives them to be happy. I believe all parents want their kids to be happy, but they have an idea of what happiness is, and it may not be exactly what happiness is for the child. And we're talking, one of the questions was trade school or tech schools. You mentioned a couple of things, cosmetology, which is I found during COVID that there's two things that will happen in the world. One, females have to get their hair done. It could be the nuclear war could happen, there could be fallout, radiation out there. They will get their hair done. And if you're a young kid out there that wants to be an entrepreneur, get a business, open some hair salons, because females will always spend money to get their hair done. And second to that, cosmetology. But then, we also have trade schools such as, auto mechanic and different things. What other exposure do you think as kids that you guys see out there that you guys would love to create trade schools for?
I think it depends on everyone's interests. I feel like, maybe more like law enforcement stuff. I know at my school, there's, I think, like 2 or 3 things that are very much law enforcement based. I know JROTC, is a thing. Criminal justice. I believe we have like a 911 ambulance class.
Yeah.
And all that stuff as well. I feel like us as young teens, we want to do something. So it's like, I feel like things based on business wise, being an entrepreneur, trying to grow as a person, how to make money, or teach us how to buy stocks, teach us how to trade, teach us something that will help us gain money in order for us to grow, in order for us to be financially stable. Like, teach me how to do my taxes, teach me how to manage my own money. I know certain schools do offer personal finance. I know I believe Fairfax County, it's a requirement in order for you to graduate. Like things like that. Like we just want to feel involved. We just want to feel useful in a way. Like, I want you to prepare me for the world that's out there.
Yeah, no, those are good things. And, we could talk much more about this. And I love to do one of our special segments, exclusive series. And it talks about things in general, beyond just Fairfax High School or Fairfax public schools. It goes more into society and the community. So I love to bring you back on board and to kind of talk about, what can we do? Where do we see ourselves for our young teens? moving into society, talking about education, talking about being an entrepreneur, opportunities out there. I think that's very good for a lot of kids to hear, because one of the last things was, one of the questions was, what if I don't want to go to college? What do I do? And you mentioned it yourself, and it's creating that. So I think, if you don't mind, we do another segment on that, and kind of just talk about that, because I think a lot of this conversation, coming from a parent perspective, I hope that I'm able to give a perspective to a teen and their teens out there on different things, and you being a teen giving perspective to adults and myself, so we could work together. So definitely love to have you come back, and we'll set that up. And with that, this officially ends our first broadcast of the Fireside Chat. Now, the intent of this is really just to be something more relaxed, and I hope you guys gain a lot from it. This will go onto our website, sabioforfairfax.com. It is being streamed, and it's going to be saved, so please push it out, send it out to other people, let people know that I think we had some a good time here talking about some real issues, from depression to what we can do for our kids, to social media and the ill effects all the way through. So I thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to speaking guys again in another 2 weeks on our Fireside Chat. I think our next one is going to be on what topic? We're going to be talking about equity on our next one. So it's going to be very fantastic, and we're going to have a subject matter expert in the field of equity going to talk with me and kind of give me some insight on that. So thank you so much, and God bless. Take care.